one of the first mechis in England passed away now, and as a young woman she'd been a member of a group disciples of the teacher called Gurdjieff, if you may, not so well known these days. Sort of mostly aristocratic people bought some big chateau or something in France, and they all lived together with their teacher, Gurdjieff, and he had his regime of spiritual exercises gathered from here and there and different mystical traditions. And there was one person in this group who just didn't seem to get it. Everybody else was just so inspired in the teacher and in the practice, and it's just this one guy. I think, why is he here? He doesn't seem to have any enthusiasm. He doesn't speak to the teacher with any respect. He's always late, and then he got into this thinking, well, this is such a paradise. This is, how fortunate we are to live here. If only that guy wasn't here. He's like the fly in the soup. So one day they come down for morning chores, and this guy's standing there with his suitcase waiting for a taxi, and he's going to leave. So everybody says, "Oh, so sorry, so sorry to hear you're leaving, and have a good life." So in parentheses, don't come back, and so he leaves, and life is wonderful. And then a week or two later, he's back, and it was, oh no. And one of the people couldn't help themselves. Asked, what brought you back? He said, well, Gurdjieff sent someone after me. He's paying me to be here. So the teacher felt that it was good for the community to have, at least one kind of disruptive person. So I don't know whether Sangha funds would stretch to that. Here at Abhayagiri, probably not necessary. So that's one story that came to mind. The other story was of what's the Korean Zen master in New York? What was his name? The one who met Luang Por. Sung-san, yeah. So Sung-san, he had a center in New York, and so two groups of disciples. So the main group were sort of middle class, educated meditators, and the other group were Korean immigrants and people who came with a very different intention. Just say like Thai people, sometimes just come here to make merit. And so the Luksits, the disciples of Sung-san, had created this incredibly beautiful shrine. It's just so tasteful and so beautiful and balanced and a real joy. And then the Korean lay people would come, and they would have these really kind of cheap, like kind of quiche kind of Buddhas and knickknacks and everything. And Sung-san would insist that these would be put on the shrine with all of the beautiful, refined, Zen-like objects. And so that was a real teaching, of course, for the Westerners. So where I'm going with this is that with samaki and with harmony of the Sangha, we tend to think we have to get everybody all online, and samaki and harmony is only possible with this blending of views and conduct, and of course that's the ideal. But we also have to learn how to create that sense of samaki when it's not like that, where there are one or two people who don't yet quite get it, or going through a difficult time, or just generally disrupting. How can we create a sense of harmony that encompasses the difficult people, if there are difficult people? So how do you create, a shrine which can harmonize the tasteful and the untasteful, the high art and the quiche? That's the real challenge. So I think in the case of the shrine, if you're looking at it in terms of art, of artistic merit, you're going to be very irritated. But if you look behind that to the state of mind of the people who placed objects on that shrine, that's where you find the harmony, that purity of intention and that faith. And in a community like ours, we do have so many rules and regulations, but we don't want them to be sticks to hit each other with, or a cause of distress, so that somebody's acting in a way which we know is not correct, or not. How can we respond to that in a way that we don't get irritated or upset? Because if that person's lost the Dhamma at the moment of their action or speech, and then we react to that with anger, then we're on the same plane. We're also lost the Dhamma. It's like falling off a boat. What caused you to fall off the boat? You're still in the sea. And if you're feeling self-righteous and upset with somebody, you're as much in the sea as if you're callously disregarding agreements of the Sangha. So underlying samakhi, I think the important point always to stress is this commitment to pavarana. The pavarana is one of the two key pillars of community life. And we have the hierarchy, and we have the rules and the regulations and the conventions and the agreements, etc., to structure our life together. But the hierarchical system needs the twin pillar of pavarana to balance it, so it doesn't become oppressive. And so pavarana is when we open ourselves to admonition from everyone, not just from our teachers, but from our peers and even our juniors. And we only do that when we have this genuine wish to free ourselves from defilements, acknowledging that we have blind spots and that we do tend to take our own side in arguments and bias towards particular ways of looking at things, and that there's really no alternative but to open ourselves up to the reflections and the advice of good friends, living in a community where we trust each other and where we make this sincere invitation to everybody. If you see or you hear something that you feel is improper, inappropriate, please let me know. And giving admonition is not easy, is it? It's particularly in finding the right time and place and choosing the right words, being mindful of your tone of voice. Also, that's one which often gets overlooked. And seeing it as a gift. Giving admonition is difficult, receiving it is difficult, because even if you have that intention, I'm going to be open to feedback and open to admonition, the problem comes when somebody comes up to you and they're obviously very well intentioned, but they've got completely the wrong end of the stick. They've misunderstood something, they've got the wrong information, or they've misinterpreted information. And that's really difficult to take, isn't it, when you're admonished for something that you didn't do. And there's an added complication, because if someone admonishes you for something that you didn't do, and then you respond to that, and then people say, oh, now you're being defensive. And it sort of adds to the frustration, trying to clear your name, and now you're being defensive as well. So there's a lot to deal with, and making yourself open to admonition means open to admonition which will sometimes mostly be fair, but sometimes won't be fair. Sometimes will be helpful, sometimes won't be helpful. But that you have to accept that. It's not a matter now I'm going to be open to admonition, but just the good ones. As I say, all of this comes primarily from Four Noble Truths. We suffer because of defilement. As long as we have defilement in our minds, we will never see the Dhamma, we will never truly be happy. And that's one of the basic teachings that we learn from day one. But it's something to keep coming back to again and again and again. Our primarily focus is on recognizing, isolating defilements, learning how to prevent their arising, learning how to deal with them effectively when they do arise. And before you can do that, you have to see the defilements. You can't deal with defilements unless you see the defilements, but your own vision is defective. That's why living in a community, certainly in the first few years, is so crucial. It's when the blindness and the bias and the prejudice is still the strongest. So it's the time when you're most in need of good friends who will give you that kind of feedback, even if it's painful sometimes. Just regarding harmony, I often in Thailand talk about two kinds of harmony. There's the harmony of the gangster and the harmony of the sage. So the harmony of the gangster is, look, you don't say anything about what I do, and I won't say anything about what you do, okay? I'll turn a blind eye to your faults, and you turn a blind eye to mine. So everyone's turning a blind eye to each other's faults. That's a kind of harmony as well, isn't it? You can get on like that, many groups do. But the harmony of the sage is, you say, like, please, you give me feedback, and if you're willing, I'll give you feedback. Of course, just one final point, when you are going to give feedback, always ask permission first. So if you say, look, I've seen something, I've heard something that's disturbing me a little bit, I'm a bit concerned, could I have permission to speak to you about it? And if that person says no, then you respect that. You can't force somebody to receive admonition, someone not yet ready for it. So there are pros and cons of living alone and pros and cons of living in a group. But whether we're alone or living in a group, you're just dealing with the five khandhas. You're dealing with the Four Noble Truths. The basic elements of practice are there wherever you are. In community life, we have opportunity to deal with certain issues that are very difficult to deal with alone, particularly areas of views, opinions, conceit. Even in people who've very strong samadhi and done a lot of solitary practice, they tend to have really big blind spots around these areas of conceit and attachment to views. Because it's living like this, where your views and ideas of who you are constantly being challenged, that you can do some really important work on the path.